I don't know if any of you looked at the southeastern sky last evening, but coming from that direction was a great dark cloud with flashes of sunlight. It was exceptionally dramatic, and I was very happy this morning to see the sun come out. Jesus was someone who taught with stories, and I would like to begin with a small symbolic action. It's possible that some of you have your lives wrapped up in dark feelings or dark thoughts or dark expectations. Life gets to be that way. And so we have in mind Jesus laid in the grave, but we also have in mind that the grave does not have the last word. It's a bit of a struggle, but life will triumph. So I'm trusting that if you came in this morning with something holding you back from the fullness of peace and joy, that you'll let that go and that your spirit will fly. Okay? But there are many texts that we could read, all looking at the meaning and the purpose of our experience as human beings in the world. And one of the texts that came to my mind as I was preparing for this morning is from a song. And the last verse of the song says, "When the night has been too lonely and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong, just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose." This imagery, this poetry is drawn from nature, and we who have had an interest in the Bible for much of our lives recognize poetry as a very important manner in which God's Spirit speaks to us. Poets in every generation have given voice to deep feelings, deep thoughts, and deep sentiments. And those feelings have survived them long after their passing from our sight. We may think of any of the voices that have inspired us. For an example, David, the psalmist, the shepherd boy, who played the lyre and sang songs to placate the angry spirit in King Saul. Poetry has a way of quickening our imaginations so that we can turn aside from the ordinary, the common, the routine, and for a moment catch a glimpse of the eternal, the everlasting, and the unseen. Thinking this week about the stories that Jesus told and the things that Jesus did, I realized that the gospel is filled with examples of resurrection. Even before Jesus was crucified, even before he was removed from the grave by the Spirit of God. We may take as our example the woman by the Samaritan well. She was living a life lost of its meaning, lost of its sense of joy. She was shamed in the face of her family, her friends, and her neighbors because of the life that she lived. But through her encounter with Jesus, the Samaritan woman had her spirit quickened so that the potential of fullness that was in her came to life. That is to say, the material circumstances which dictated her experience were overcome by a spiritual awakening. We may think also of the blind beggar by the gate who had no life to speak of, who had none of the privileges, none of the joys, none of the pleasures that the people all about were experiencing. Day after day he cried out, "Oh God, help me, oh God, help me." But folks didn't even notice him anymore. He just didn't seem to be there. Then one day Jesus is walking by and he hears the beggar's voice and he turns aside from his path and he addresses the beggar, and the beggar's life is changed forever. His eyes are open. He can see. He is strengthened. He can rise up and walk. The stories could be multiplied. You can think of them. And it's not just Bible stories. It's stories in our lived experience that also testify to the meaning of the resurrection. Someone we know has been laid low by some unfortunate circumstance. It seems as if the meaning of their life is extinguished. They don't have any hope. They're ready to give up. And then one of us, any one of us, inspired by the Spirit of Jesus, may stop, engage that person, say a kind word, put a hand on the shoulder, and that person's spirit is quickened. And from that spiritual death, they come up into spiritual life. The distinction between spirit and matter is very important. Our bodies are made of matter. The world we live in is made of matter, but we ourselves are spirit. We come out of an invisible place, we are born, we grow, and we pass into that invisible place. And for some, that transition out of this material world into that invisible place holds fear. And the story of the resurrection indicates that there is no reason to be afraid. The one who gave us life, the one who sustained us all along the way of our life, is the same one who will receive us when we cross over to the other side. So we live confidently. We live towards that inevitable future without doubt, without fear. And then a part of my brain is saying, oh, if only that were really true. But we do struggle with doubt. We do struggle with fear. We do struggle with insecurity. And knowing that gives us motive to seek out spiritual reality for ourselves. You see, up until a certain point, we are growing materially. We are getting the kind of hair we have. We're getting the kind of teeth we have, the kind of physique we have. All of that is happening. But inside, we are also becoming persons. And that person who we are becoming sometimes gets stuck in the way of the world, thinking that that is all that there is. The story of Jesus Christ tells us that there is more to life than what appears, and that is the spiritual reality. Just very briefly, Paul notices two things. One, that death is inevitable. And then he draws a connection between the death of a seed and how the death of a seed is the exact thing required for the life of the plant to grow. The plant doesn't resemble the seed. In the same way, at some point, we may think of the butterfly. We may think of this as our cocoon. And within us, this spiritual being is formed. And when death comes, that appearance will be torn away, and that spirit will be liberated. And we don't know, because we haven't seen what transpired on the other side of dying. But we do know one thing for sure, that the people whom we have known throughout the course of our life, the people whom we have loved, respected, and admired, they have been like sowers, grandma and grandpa, telling stories, singing songs, playing with the children, sowing seeds into those imaginations. Hopefully, seeds of confidence, seeds of daring, seeds of courage, seeds of truthfulness. So when Grandma and Grandpa pass over to the other side, those seeds have been growing in the grandkids. And as those grandkids grow, Grandma and Grandpa's character lives on. That's one of the manifestations of the resurrection. And again this week, thinking about this morning, I remember that I have a habit in my life. I cannot walk very far in any public place without seeing people whom I have loved, whom have died. Mom and Tante Hetty are here, and every once in a while I'll say to Barbara, oh look, there's Tante Hinka, or there's Matisse, or there's Paka. And I'm using these Dutch words because I've got Dutch family here today. But what I'm saying is that out the corner of my eye, I'll catch a glimpse of a person, and the memory, the spirit of the loved ones comes to mind. And I know that they live. They live in my imagination. They live in my heart. And their memory strengthens me so that I want to live in such a way that the seeds that I sow fall into the imaginations of the young and the growing and produce there the good fruit of a spiritual life. There are times when I could go on talking, but there are also times when it's wise to simply stop. And I'm going to stop again by quoting from the song The Rose. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. May the risen Christ be present in your experience in such a way that wherever you go, whatever you do, the light of God's love will cast out the darkness in people all around you. Would you say, Amen?